Now let's consider one of the more serious issues that TikTok had with the United States, because you might say, you know what, Leslie, you're bringing up all of these concerns of security, but how do we know that China is really accessing our information? Well, let me bring up one of the more serious issues that was brought it was brought up to Congress, and they had Senate meetings about this. Now, I'm going to be talking about audio recordings that were leaked. Yes, there was audio recordings that were leaked where more than 80 internal TikTok meetings from Chinese-based employees of ByteDance where they were repeatedly mentioning in these audios that they had accessed non-public information, essentially our private information of US TikTok users. Yes, they got exposed, guys. The audio recordings. Could you imagine? You're like, yeah, we access this information. And no, they were exposed. And so that was brought before Congress in the Senate meeting. And according to BuzzFeed News, the recordings contained 14 statements from 9 different TikTok employees indicating that engineers in China had accessed U.S. data between September of 2021 and January of 2022. During that Senate hearing in October of 2021, the U.S. employees had addressed their concerns to their Chinese colleagues about how the U.S. Data was flowing. And so according to the tape recordings, the US staff claimed that they essentially said, okay, we don't have access to this information. We don't know how to get into those TikTok servers so that we can access private information of our US citizens, the data that was collected. And then, or they said they also had no knowledge, they had no permission and they had no knowledge on how to do it. Which means only one thing, guys. If U.S. citizens, employees for TikTok, had not accessed the private information of the TikTok users, who else would have? I mean, clearly that meant that Chinese employees were the only ones who had access to that data. So TikTok executives swore a testimony in January 2022 that the US-based, they basically had a security team. It was called the US-based security team, which decided who had access to that data. But again, these U.S. security teams said, we don't know how to get on. And what kind of information, by the way, again, did they essentially access? What things you commented on videos, what videos you reposted. They essentially were able to track what the users, all the stuff that India had, the concerns of location, your clipboard. They essentially knew your mind. I hate to say it that way because, here's the thing. You may think that that's an exaggerated statement, but guys, what we don't utter out loud, we tend to comment and post online. It's kind of like I see it this way. I've had people who have had conflicts with what I have to say. And then as soon as I confront them in person about it, they sort of freeze or don't really know what to say, or they get more aggressive or less aggressive than what they were online. But no matter what, needless to say, guys, people tend to be a lot more bluntly honest and aggressive online. And so if you're able to collect and gather that data, you can sort of sway the public one way or another. And it's not good. It's not good to have access to that information. So again, the big question was asked in Congress,